All right, guys, so this is going to be the video on how to show you guys how to draw and approach a flower. I've already showed you guys how to draw the eyes, as well as teaching you guys how to draw a goldfish. This next one is going to be how to draw the flower. Now, with my first period art class, I did go over this a little bit. So if you recognize it and you know how to do the first part of this particular drawing, then you can continue, but I will add a few other elements as well. So make sure that you do add those for the practice. That way it shows the whole complete image, okay? Now, if you guys, like I said, finish by today, upload it today. Do not wait till tomorrow, which I will have the due date for tomorrow for those of you guys that need to go back and rewatch the video for the second practice. However, you know, if you finish it today, get it uploaded, don't wait, because I am inputting grades at this point. You guys remember, like I had said about the testing, that I was testing for 2 days. So I got behind on some of the grading. However, I will go ahead and make sure that those grades get input by Wednesday. So that way, you know, you will be passing by Friday's, you know, because it's the report card already. It's not even the progress report, it is a report card, okay? So the first step to this, and again, we are going to be drawing for this particular one 2 flowers, not just one, you know, for the practice. So what we're going to end up doing is an oval shape first. I am going to do it in this direction. So you're going to see the oval shape right here, because I will be drawing a second one and I'm going to put it in the opposite direction, just not yet. Okay, we're going to start with the first one. Now, if I draw the other circle that's going to apply the center area of the flower, it almost looks like, if I were to think of like an egg, you know, and honestly, I would use something like this if I was cooking an egg that's, I don't even know how to say it correctly. Is it over easy over? I always say it backwards, but like one of those eggs where you have the yolk, you know, present, you know, it kind of resembles something like that, but this is not the only shape that we're going to be drawing to it. We are also going to break it down by the petals. So it's going to change slightly, but maybe the first step you can say, like if you're going to put step 1, you can say draw 2 circles, and you can even, if that's what it looks like to you, you can go ahead and put that. If not, if it looks more like a flying saucer, do that. It's whatever you can accommodate to what it looks like when you're writing your steps, okay? So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead, and even before I start with drawing the center, which should be the first part, I'm gonna draw also the shapes of the petals. Now, right now, I'm just gonna draw oval shapes, and I wanna make sure some overlap, that they're not directly, like you notice these lines kind of overlap slightly. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna draw those oval shapes all the way around. Long ovals, I don't want them. If I go slightly over that original circle, it's okay. You know, that's just there as a guide. It's whatever feels good to me and whatever feels comfortable when I'm drawing in the shapes. And since I already have this particular shape going on, I will draw the top for my second one. Now, I want it to look a little bit more natural. Usually when these little kind of daisy looking flowers grow, they don't grow all at the same length. Anybody who's into gardening, I got into it not too long ago, at least a couple of years back. I used to garden all the time when I was younger with my grandmother. Getting back into it now, I know when I look at these, when I plant them, they come up and they continue to grow more and more and more, to where you have to deadhead. That means where you have to cut the flowers that already have withered away if you want the plant to look good. So at this point, because I know they come up at different lengths, I am going to draw the next one just a little bit lower. If I want to draw it a little bit smaller, I can, because sometimes the new growth will look a little smaller and then they start to get a little bit bigger afterwards. But if you make it the same size, that's okay too, okay? So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and draw my middle circle, because I already know the steps, so I'm just following and repeat. So on step 2, if you wanna, after you, actually step 2 should be to draw the little circles for the petals, but step 3 would be just repeat step 1 and 2 on a second flower, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna draw my shapes like this. And just real quick, if you need paper, just in case you do want to follow, there's some in that little back cubby over there in the middle, okay? Yeah, and that little white one. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just continue. So you guys should already know how to do this part at this point if you did it on the first one, okay? If you get stuck, just a reminder for those of you guys that are here right now in the live class, at the very end, when I mute myself again and I stop the recording, if you guys have questions, you can always ask at the very end, okay? So now that I kind of have my basis here of the shape of where I'm going with it, if I look at it and I'm like, no, I wanted more petals, I want them to look a little bit longer, this is the time to go back and fix it before you start adding some of the detailed elements, okay? So, and again, we keep these lines very light because with the shading, I can do less erasing and it's gonna cover some of that stuff. So that'll help me out too as well. Okay, so at this point now, if you remember from those of you guys that were in this class, originally when I went over it, what I start off with is right here, the center area. Now I wanna give it some kind of dimension and I wanna give it the illusion that it goes up and down and I don't see necessarily the back side of it, okay? So because it's a little, the flower's not like this, the flower is like this, like at an angle. So because of that, what I wanna do is I'm going to draw almost as if it were not perfectly shaped. I want some little bumps in there because of the little pollen and all that stuff will create that effect. And then it's almost kind of like a little bit of a eye shape. I would like if I had to compare it, just because yes, it has a little bit round edge, but it's almost like a point on the sides. Okay, that's the effect that you're trying to get. Again, to give the illusion that the daisy is more off to the side rather than looking at it from aerial view. We're trying to give depth and dimension, and this is the way to do it, okay? So because I did it on this one, I'm gonna go ahead and repeat that same thing over here. Might as well get, you know, both of them done at the same time. If I already know that that's the step, then I should just go ahead and draw that. And again, this angle is different, but I'm still doing the same thing, almost like an eye shape. The top is the one that I want to be a little bit more bumpy. Like, you know, I don't want it perfectly straight. I want some little movement to it, just because again, it is pollen based and we want to give it that illusion that it's got like texture on the top. So now the next step after this would be to start already drawing out the petal shapes and its actual shape. So I'm going to start off with the ones here in the front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit. So I'm paying attention to this first one. And I'm going to put this one on the top of the other petal. So I'm going to make it a little bit more narrow here to the edges. And then I'm going to come out on the tip of the edge here. I want to make sure that I also go back in. So I'm just giving it like this little tiny petal shape where it just becomes more narrow over here, connecting to the actual flower itself. I'm going to skip this one because this is where you're going to judge now your petals, the actual circles that you made, and take a look at it and say, does this one look like it would be on top of this one? Does this one look like it would be underneath? For me, that's a yes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw the narrowness of this one first as I come out, and then bring it out just a little bit bigger towards the edge. This is going to be the one that's placed down on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and just where this part of the circle is, come out. I'm going to move this just a little bit, just so that way I can see a little bit of the tip here. And I'm just going to continue all the way around with that same technique. So I'm going to look at it and say, no, I think this one looks like it's a little bit on top of this one. So if that's the case, then I'm going to draw this part of the petal first. It disappears underneath this one because that one's on top. And then maybe this larger one right here can be the one sitting on top. So I'm going to start narrow, come out, and then narrow. Now, when you guys are drawing these lines, I'm drawing them a little darker than you should. Try to stay a little bit lighter, so that way if you make a mistake and you have to erase, you're not going to have any lines stay behind. I'm doing this part again, like I said, just for the fact being that I want to make sure, and this is for you so that way you can get it. So I just want to make sure that when you guys are drawing this particular part, that it's not going to have any kind of, like I said, where we erase and we have to do a lot of, no, go ahead. Do you have a question? Hold on, guys. We're just going to take a quick pause. No, he doesn't belong in this class. That's T-Pod. Is that where it's supposed to be? I don't have that student. Okay. All right, guys, I'll re-record during third period. That way I can go ahead and have a clean video, but we'll just keep going with this one, okay? So at this point, what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna come this way and start with this one on top, just because it does look like it's falling on top, the petal. And then the one that's underneath it. So I'm just gonna go like this. Now, if you guys, as you're drawing, if you are following on top or bottom and it's not the same as mine, that's okay, because you're going by your original one. So you're gonna be the one that's going to judge based off of which one goes on what, okay? So I'm gonna do the same thing right here, and I'm gonna come around, and then I'm gonna come this way, and I'm gonna get a little bit narrow. This one looks like it's on the bottom, so you'll just continue to do that process. So I'm gonna, at this point, go a little bit quick on this now. So I'm just gonna kind of go and base it off of what I see. You know, this one, for me, I want more petals in there. Like that petal seems too large. So if you want to break it down, what I do recommend is do the circles first like this before you add. So that way it'll help you judge just a little bit better. And then I'll do the same thing right here. I'm gonna go like this, come around, and then like this, and then this one looks like it's going to the back. Now, as you guys are drawing, so like on this one as example, I have some space in here. If I wanna add any small petals in the back, like I think that looks like there would be another petal here. Like maybe right here, there would be another petal growing somewhere here. So I'm gonna add, so you can go and add on areas that you might think would have an additional petal. That's going to be up to you guys. So judge your flowers as you're drawing it to see if you have to add more or not. Okay. So at this point with this little area here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come and I'm going to start judging my petals and say which one looks like it is in front. So we're repeating the process here. So I'll go more quicker on this as you guys are doing yours. You go ahead and just go based off of yours. If you're trying to follow mine exactly, and it's not 100%, as long as you get the gist of it and it looks similar, then it's okay. You know, they're not all gonna be the same. I'm gonna scoot mine over a little bit this way just because it's a little bit more comfortable. I actually wanna add 2 petals here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it narrow and follow this, and then I'll add an additional petal like if it's in the back on that one. So if that happens to you, they're accidentally a little bit too separate because you are trying to accommodate the shape of the petal, then go ahead and just add another one in the back if you have to. And then see right here, I've got 2 petals. So I'm gonna just narrow it off and do this, and then this one's gonna look like it's right behind it in the back. See this right here, there's too little. So I think I drew them too big. So I'm gonna draw first 3 here just to kind of get a comfortable shape, including this one because it went a little bit too far out. That way, when I draw the petals, it looks a little bit more natural. So now that I have my 2 flowers like that, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start, you know, I'm not gonna shade just yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish the outline because if I am gonna connect these, they do have some stems here that should follow in the middle. Now, this is not see-through. So what I wanna do is I wanna take this and just draw myself a little line as a guide. Now, these usually do not go straight. They have a little bend to them, you know, because once they have the weight of the flower up on top, they aren't going to be perfectly straight. They tend to curve in the direction, you know, if there's a lot of wind and so forth, it's gonna make them, you know, bend a little. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And then I'm gonna do this one as well. And I'm gonna go ahead and bend this too. And at this point, it just has a slight bend. If you wanna bend them even more, go for it, okay? But I do wanna make these into actual stems. So it does have to have a double line. You can either, if it feels comfortable and it looks like it would still be, you can either do one line on the opposite side. These usually tend to be very thin. They aren't thick at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this down. And then on this one, if I pay attention to it, I drew it a little bit off to the side so I can get away with doing it on this side. If you drew it exactly in the middle, you might want to put two lines, one on each side of it, so that way it actually looks like it would be coming from the center of this. As long as this looks like it's coming from the center of your flower, then you're good, okay? Now, depending on what variety of flower this is, because there are different types of daisy-styled flowers, where they have more round shape and they'll have like little small stems, and then they have like a grouping of maybe 3 or 4 to 5 little petals, or they have the long ones. On this one, I think it would be easier for, since you guys are Art 1 and you're barely learning how to draw, to do long rather than all those little tiny details, because usually when they break off into smaller ones, it's more than just one. Like you have to go off of the side. So we're gonna keep it more simple. I'm gonna draw a long oval shape just to get the shape of where it's gonna go more or less. And then from the bottom, I'm just going to extend this up. Same thing down here, I'm just going to extend this up, and then I am going to point off the edge of this like that. So we're just gonna bring it simple. You can put a line in the center. Usually they tend to have like the veining and all that, but I'm just gonna keep it simple with just one line. I am gonna add a small one right here in the middle just to kind of cover where those flowers are going. So you can draw the oval shape. If you can draw a shape that looks a little bit more natural without having to draw the oval shape, then fine. But if yours is like very stiff, if you draw that first one and it doesn't look natural, draw the oval shape, because that oval shape is going to help you make it look more natural. Okay, so I'm going to take it here, and then all I'm going to do is just point it up, bring it here, come back down, and then put that line in the middle. And as long as you have the 3, you want to add more, that's fine. Like I can have another one right here if I wanted, so I can add a 4th one. But this one's behind this one, so I don't see all of it. I only see it poking out over here. So if you want to add more, you can. If you want to add more flowers, you can. For those of you guys on your final, if you're like, no, I don't want to, I want 3 or I want 5, however many you want to draw on the final one, that's fine. But I'm just showing you for the practice, okay, as far as for that. So the shading, what we're going to do for the shading now, because this is just the outline, we're going to go ahead and I kind of showed you guys already with color blending for this class, but the other classes haven't seen it. So let me go ahead and zoom in a little. Now, we already know that something that sits on something else causes a shadow, always. So what I'm going to do is on each of these little petals, and we're just going to do very minimal shading. We're not going to do a whole bunch. We're going to pretend as if these were like little white flowers almost, so that way you see it very light. On each one of these, if this is sitting on top of this, we're just going to cast a little tiny shadow. So you're just going to take it very quickly dark to light on the ones that fall underneath. This is sitting on top, so I'm going to put a little shadow down here, and I'm going to go dark to light. And that's what's going to make this look a little bit more 3D. So again, this is underneath this one. So I have to put a little bit of shadow right here, dark to light this way. This is sitting underneath both of them. So I'm going to put a little, make sure that this one right here is going to be a real tight shadow. So I want to make sure that that gets really dark, kind of like what we did with the eyes, because it's way in the back. So that's going to cast a darker shadow than on the other ones. Okay. This is underneath this, so I'm going to put a little bit of shadow dark to light this way. Just pick it up really fast. Same thing on this one. Let me go ahead and just put a little bit of dark to light, and I'm just going to continue that all the way around. This is underneath. Then I add a little bit of shading. So look at your petals, see which one looks like it is going dark to light in which direction. Now right here, because there is a area that should cast more shadow like the other one. Usually when you just see a little bit of these, like this one too, just a tiny bit right here. If it's covered by 2, you're gonna just cast more of a shadow. So like this one, I don't really see that anywhere else other than those 2 spots. So those are gonna be the ones that are a little bit darker. So then dark to light, right here, dark to light. And remember, this is practice. So if your shading isn't like 100%, like see, this part can be better. As long as you do good shading on your final, I just need to see that you guys understand where the shadows are going to be for the practice, okay? So same thing right here, dark to light, dark to light. This one right here, dark to light, dark to light. Same thing right here, dark to light. And then for the texture that's gonna fall here, oops, in the center, you guys didn't see that. Okay, so for the texture part, what we're gonna do is we're just going to put some areas a little bit darker, and I'm just gonna go dark to light in little spots and kind of give it the illusion of texture and almost like a kind of a texture that looks like pollen. So I'm just gonna go in and just create some little shadows. Some areas stay lighter than others. And right now, all I'm doing is I'm just creating the little pockets. I'm not adding the shadow of it just yet. I'm just going in and making sure that I have some highlights, that I have some grays, and that I have some darks. I'm just gonna go here and just make sure that some spots are darker than others. And then the same thing right here. What is yes? Same thing right here, same thing right here, same thing right here. And then really all that I'm gonna do at this point is just make sure that this part has a little bit more shading. So just a little darker on this side and a little darker on this side, just to give the illusion that it's going like dark to light to dark. So on the shadowed parts on these little areas, just add a little bit more, guys. It's just gonna be just a tiny bit, just to give it the illusion again that it's round. For the stem, the flower's sitting on top of the stem, so I do wanna make sure that I get just a little bit of dark to light like this, just to give it that little shadow. So that's the first step. So let me zoom out so you can see what I'm talking about at a distance. And then things that, again, that kind of have like a cylinder shape should have a little bit of a shadow towards the outside. So I'm just gonna go a little bit dark to light like this, dark to light like this on from one side to the other. So you're just gonna go dark to light on the whole entire thing. If these are behind the leaves, that means that I'm also creating shadow down here on the bottom of the stem. So I should go dark to light first going up, and then the same thing, dark to light from the edge this way, okay? Remember, if I am going fast for you, you guys can go ahead and get away with rewatching the video and then just pausing it on the spots that you need. If you feel like I'm going too fast, if you feel like I'm going too slow, then as you're shading it, shade the second one. That way you get it out of the way, okay? I want to just kind of darken the line, and I usually don't do this for like realistic drawings, but in the case of how you guys are going to be putting this on a simple background, you can get away with just darkening the line only, just making sure that it has transition from one side, because you're going to have color on this. So you'll have the illusion of that, and it's okay if you do that for this one, okay? For the leaves, anything that's behind something else, so remember, cast a shadow, dark to light. And then on these, I would just keep it a light gray, guys. So I would just do light gray on all of it. And again, I'm doing this quickly, but just you guys take your time and make sure that you do your shading right. And then I do the same thing for the opposite side. And you can actually shade pretty fast. If you guys use the side of your pencil with that circular motion, you should be able to shade pretty fast. You shouldn't take too long for the shading if you do it like this and start learning how to do it like this, okay? Because you can make it still look pretty smooth for the most part. And then you just take this line, darken it, and just pick one side to go to. So I'm gonna go dark to light in this direction. So that's pretty much it as far as for the shading. I mean, you're gonna do the same thing to all the leaves. You're gonna do the same thing, whatever we did this to this one. And then the only thing I would do is if any of your leaves do go underneath, you are gonna cast the shadow dark to light, just like we did with the petals with the leaves as well. So you do need to cast a shadow if something is going behind something else. And you guys already know how to shade. Circular motion, and you lift the pressure as you go towards the light. How this has my line here, I do have to also go dark to light this way because of what we did originally for the leaf over here, okay? And so that's pretty much it as far as for that. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording because all you're doing is just repeating whatever we did here over here, okay?